Push! It's up for grabs now!
Magic ball from Bergkamp to Patrick Vieira!
Oh, would you believe it? Oh, right, what a way to get it! Well,
Fabulous solo goal by Thierry Henry.
Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the Arsenal Lounge. I think I'm getting a bit of feedback. Is that one of you guys or me? There you go. Anyway, we've had some crazy shenanigans this evening with tech, but we're here. Before we start, just say hello to the panelists as always, starting with Mo. How you doing, mate?
I am good. Back to winning ways, a consummate professional performance. I'm happy, man.
Fair dues. Thank you for that. And Tom, how are you doing, mate?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Mate,
now
I'm telling you,
me.
there's something going on today. It's
Honestly.
crazy. Yeah.
No, I see my mic was going crazy. It was like saying it was red, and now it seems fine now. But yeah, I'm good. I'm well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Am I coming through clear, by the way, now, guys?
Yes, I think we're now all sorted.
Excellent. A big hello to everyone in the chats already. We got Uber7, I think it is Abuba7, Sahil, Guna Boy, Anthony, I think it's N92, Paul Afaji, and Kevin Hendon, Bjorn again, and a few others. But look, I'm sure it's going to warm up in a bit. But guys, listen, I thought today we'll start again on the obvious. It's a positive stream as has been most of the season so far. Don't want to jinx it, but again, Leicester v Arsenal, a performance that was could have been, we could have won by a few more goals, but listen, the lineups were pretty much straightforward. I think the only difference was Trossard was brought in as a false nine. If I'm forgetting something, let me know. Partey was still on the bench. We still had Jorginho in midfield. And guys, I mean, it was a tough game away, but I think we dominated. We were solid, resilient. If it wasn't for VAR, which we will go into, we could have been more comfortable. But I'd like to start with Mo. No, actually, let's start with Tom, because you was at the game, Tom, wasn't you?
Was, yeah.
Yes. So, Tom, talk me through what you saw at the King Power Stadium, how you felt it went, because I know that early signs were a little bit sort of, concerning, but then we started to take over and dominate. How did you see the game, mate?
I described it as a bit of a bizarre match afterwards. I found it quite a strange game. Like you're absolutely right in saying we dominated, but it was like Leicester didn't kind of care. I don't know about you. I just kind of did. They just didn't really seem like they really were going for it at all at any kind of point. Maybe the last couple
the
of
atmosphere
moments
was a bit dead there as well.
Honestly, mate, it was dead. It was dead. Like, it was so quiet. Arsenal fans, brilliant. The away fan support were absolutely fantastic. But the home support is the quietest I've seen the Leicester fans. And I think in commentary, Jonathan Pearce on Match of the Day actually pointed out as well. It's the quietest the King Power's been. They're in a bit of a weird moment. They lost games, but then they started to pick up some decent results. But they battered Spurs there with a performance that was night and day compared to what we witnessed. But yeah, look, I think that Arsenal could have won this game by more. And I think that, maybe if we were going up against a different team that were playing better, maybe it would have sparked something else from ourselves rather than, the obvious line is to say, well, if we play like that against someone better, you're going to get beaten. But I actually think that, when you come up against a team that start giving you a bit more, you react and respond to it. So I don't think it's as cut and dry as that. I just think we kind of coasted through the game. We could have scored more. We arguably should have had, we can talk about the refereeing decisions, and I'm sure that we will. But yeah, I was impressed with some of the performances again. Jorginho, I thought, was great again. I was really pleased with the performances of Trossard in that centre forward role as well. I thought he offered
That's
something
a strange one, wasn't it?
Short.
We weren't expecting that.
No, I wasn't expecting. It's actually what I asked for in my preview show. That's what I said I wanted to see Nketiah given a bit of a rest because he's been shattered these last few weeks. And so Trossard came in and I thought was more collaborative than what we've seen from Nketiah, dropping into the half spaces, linking up with, you saw him drop to the left flank when he set up Martinelli for the goal. That's kind of how much he was moving about the pitch. So, yeah, I was really happy with in the end, I was really happy, but I think we made it a bit more nervy than we needed it to.
Fair enough. So you felt that we had a couple of more gears we could have gone up if need be, by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Mo, you didn't go to the game, I'm guessing. being up at Leicester?
Unfortunately not, no. And I actually do, I really like that away day because, look, when I go to an away game, after the game, what I want is I want a good meal and a good shisha. Leicester's got that in abundance. So not only that, I really rate Leicester's home support. And usually I would always say to people that the two grounds where I go and I think, do you know what, your home support is great, is Leicester and Palace. And like Tom was saying, yeah, in this particular game, they just weren't there. Do you know what you want for your club is for your players and the fans to be in harmony. And Leicester's players and fans are in absolute harmony, but not in a good way. Just kind of just coasting to the end of the season, it seems. And, it's tough, I guess, for Leicester because they've enjoyed success. So it's probably hard for them to get motivated by this, a Premier League, an FA Cup. And now all of a sudden, they find themselves 14th. I don't think any Leicester fan is really, really scared of relegation or really considering relegation. They've got enough quality in the team. And this was a Leicester team without Maddison. If you're a Leicester fan going to the game in a season like this, the one player that you're looking at thinking, that's the one player that I get excited when he gets the ball, is Maddison. Look, albeit Iheanacho is a very good player, Harvey Barnes is a very good player, but Maddison, their record with and without him is night and day. And I think they really missed him. He seems to be the one that takes it by the scruff of the neck. And I think other people come alive when he's there. Like Harvey Barnes is a much better player when Maddison's alongside him. So, yeah, I'm not complaining. I would absolutely take every team's star man, every team's protagonist to be nowhere near the match day when Arsenal come to town. And I think it did us favours. But that's not to take anything away from Arsenal. That's kind of the sub-story. The main story is how Arsenal just so expertly controlled the game. It's such an underrated thing in football. It's such a hard thing to do. My one complaint with Unai Emery was that every game is a coin toss with him. Shots left, right, and centre, us, them, everyone, just fans, mascots, flipping ball boys, everyone's taking shots. In an Unai Emery game with Mikel Arteta, real control over how that game goes, how it ebbs and flows. Generally, I expect in a football game that each team will have a spell. No matter the level of the opposition, you'll have a 5-10 minute spell, at the very least. Leicester didn't even have that. Never mind a shot on target. Never mind expected goals of 0.01 or 0.02, depending on the source. They didn't even have a corner, for God's sake. I mean, that is unheard of. So I think Arsenal and Arteta deserve a lot of credit with key weaknesses in our team, key players out in our team, away from home, in a very competitive league, that we did such a good job. And above all, when a team goes a goal down, then that's when you think to yourself, naturally the game's going to open up. They'll end up pushing a few men forward and create something. They didn't even do that. So Arsenal being able to manage it, scoring early in the second half, honestly, it was such a brilliant performance, but one that we'll all forget about in an instant because it was only 1-0. And actually, in the control came an element of it being a bit dull.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I one thing I was happy with was the way we defended as a team and as a unit, because it seemed like we were back to what we'd been seeing earlier on in the season. I saw a clip. I actually forwarded it on myself on Twitter. It was Keane and Dewberry Hall. It was a post-match interview. And when he was asked, about how, the game, etc., he actually pinpointed what he would see when Arsenal lost the ball. And he classed it as he would look up and see a sea of red, how quickly we would come back. And I'd noticed that when I was watching the game, that when they countered us, it was like 1 second they were zooming up the pitch, and then someone would hold them up momentarily, and before you knew it, there was just all these red shirts all back very, very quickly. And it's just crazy the work ethic that I think Arteta's instilled in these guys. And it's something like Mo has said, what you was expecting from someone like Emery. What you're expecting from an Arsenal side now is totally different. It's a total change in philosophy, and you feel a lot more confident. But looking at the game, I mean, you rightfully said we controlled this game. I was again impressed with Jorginho, the way he controlled the game himself, and Odegaard, the way he came across, handled things with the ball, etc. But it was a little bit disappointing that yet again although we've had apologies and all sorts in regards to the PGMOL and all that, with yet another game where you could say we've been sort of handled badly. And if it wasn't for our sort of persistence, we could have easily dropped another few points here. Now, I mean, firstly, I'd like to come to you, Tom, in regards to the 26th minute. I think it was it a corner initially, where the ball comes across, goalkeeper goes up for it. Nothing really made of it. It lands on the edge of the box. Trossard picks it up, does a lovely bit of skill on the edge of the box, finds some space, bang, straight into the goal, top bins. You don't see anything wrong with that, right? And I didn't even see anybody sort of protesting. What's your take on it? Because I mean, this is the picture that we were shown, right?
Yeah.
Now you could see the keeper's. Now you could argue that he's holding the keeper's arm there. But then, let's be honest, if the keeper really wants to pull his arm away from that situation, he can. So was it right, firstly, in your opinion, to disallow that first goal, which would have given Trossard a great boost of confidence scoring an important goal in an important game?
Yeah, it's one of those where I look at it as an Arsenal fan, I'm like, you can't disallow that. It's just so soft, so incredibly soft. And then I was chatting at halftime to some of the other journalists in the press box, and they were making the case how it's a foul because he's holding on to Ward in that moment. He's impeding his ability to punch the ball away more effectively. But I agree with you, Lev, that if Ward really wants to, White's got one hand on his glove. You're a grown man. You should be able to pull away your arm fairly comfortably enough if you want to get a better purchase on to clear the ball away. I also got annoyed when I was reminded to look back at our goal we conceded against Aston Villa from the direct corner of Douglas Luiz. I think its camera is all over Ramsdale, far more contact, blocking him, impeding him from getting to the ball in that scenario. And I know we're going to talk about the Saka incident shortly, but for me, there's more contact there to bring Saka down than there is impeding Ward. So if you're not going to give that because there's not enough contact or deemed contact on Saka, how you can give this one? It's for me, it's like, if you want to say that's a foul, fine. But you have to then make that consistent. And it's that word that keeps coming up over and over again of consistency. I have no issue if you want to set a bar and say that's where the bar is. But you've then got to make that the bar going forward. And that's also what the FA have done made a rod for their back with the charges we keep getting. They made the rod for their back at Oxford because they set the bar so low for the way in which players can approach referees. Yeah. And now every time a player approaches referees, you're seeing charges go out left, right, and centre. So look, it's chaos, to be honest, for me. PGMOL, the officiating in the league, it's an embarrassment to the country's sport. And we just got to, if we win the league, it'll be in spite of the referees. So
yeah, I mean, I'll have to agree with you on that. I mean, it seems to me, Mo, I'll come to you with this as well. When it comes to us, it's eye of the needle, anal, pedantic type of research into any moment if it's a situation that's in our favour that could be taken away from us, right? But then on the opposite side, it's blind man bluff when it's something that maybe should go in our favour that hasn't gone in our favour. So what's your take on it? Because, I mean, I saw a funny clip that I thought I'd bring in. This is what I see checking club badge is VAR right now. That just says it all to me. I mean, what's your take on what you've seen with this Trossard thing first? I mean, we've seen far worse. I think I saw another clip of a Spurs game that they scored a goal and they bundled the keeper over in their box and nothing was given. What do you make of it?
First things first is that, a bad decision in one game has absolutely no bearing on a decision in another game.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah.
So I get that why we're drawing the comparisons to make the point about consistency. So I absolutely hear that. But the reality is there is no consistency in this league. And that means that week on week, you're just going to get different decisions. Annoyingly for us, I do agree with you, Lev. It does seem like we are just on the wrong side of the consistency so often, because I actually feel like it was a foul on Ward there. Ben White's holding his hand. He's been very clever. His own torso sort of like hiding that from the ref, so the ref can't see it. And you know the point that people make about, oh, Ward can pull his hand away if he wants to. Like, yeah, of course he can. But I don't know if you've ever played football. Like, if there's an open goal, for example, and your mind is complete, it's like a vacuum. You can. Oh, have I gone? Am I back?
You're back, yeah.
Good.
You went really robotic for a minute, but you're back. Yeah, you.
Right, good, yeah. So I was saying that, like, let's say, for example, the ball breaks, it's an open goal. Your mind is just in a complete vacuum. All you think about is getting to that ball. Now, if someone's pulling your shirt, it takes you quite a while to be aware of the fact that you're being impeded because you're so focused on the ball. It's only when your body can't sort of do what you want it to do that you kind of realize and you check. So Danny Ward in that moment, it's only a few seconds. He's had his hand held. And honestly, I don't blame him. I can actually completely relate to why he didn't pull his hand away, because that means that you have to stop concentrating on what you're concentrating on. And to him, that's his entire world at that moment in time, that I have to get my hand to this ball. So I get how it can look a bit odd that he could have done it, but he didn't. And you say there wasn't a lot of protest, but Danny Ward did protest. He did go up to the referee. And I do think it was the right decision. But I find it very annoying because, I say week by week, but it's not week by week. It's minute by minute. In the same game, in a different minute, Saka, the contact on him is ridiculous.
No,
now,
absolutely.
The thing is as well, the one other extra point I would say is that there's a distinct difference with what happened with Danny Ward and the fact that it was a goalkeeper's hand, because that goalkeeper was about to play the ball with his hand. He had to punch it with his other hand. I don't know which one he would have used, but he was only left with one hand to punch it. It wasn't a very good punch, and then we go and score directly from that punch. After Xhaka obviously plays it to Trossard. So I completely get why the goal was disallowed. But had that been an outfield player, it never would have been given. If Ben White was holding the hand of, Tyrone Mings, it was Leicester, of Faze, for example, it's never going to get given. But it becomes more relevant because it was a goalkeeper. So even at the time, I was like, fine, it is a foul. I accept that. But then now let's talk Saka. And someone try and put a case forward as to why that wasn't a foul. And did it even go to VAR?
Well, this is what I wanted to discuss. I mean, all right, so I'm more than happy to accept that explanation, Mo. If you want to look at it through iron and needle stuff, and you look at it, if it was our player, if it was Ramsdale being held, you'd probably say, "Hey, come on, that should have been a foul, right?" But we've already experienced it earlier on in the season when Ramsdale was impeded. Far worse, in my opinion. Nothing was given. All right, so then not long after that, okay, you're checking VAR, you're being anal about it. Fine, this happens. Crossing the box. I saw this immediately when it happened. Now, they're all suggesting the Leicester player fell and, he slipped, what have you, but he's holding on to the player here. So please, someone explain to me. Now, Tom, I've been listening to a lot of the stuff you've been saying recently, and I'm in agreement with most of it, in the sense of, these referees, they should have some sort of be penalized in some way or go down a league or what have you. But then, do the lower leagues deserve this type of refereeing? And let's be honest, in the lower leagues, they're not going to even have VAR. VAR is there to prevent human error. But then the final decision is still being given to a human who then carries on, looks at this, and even after they have the safeguard of VAR, they're still making these decisions. When do we actually look at this and say, go from poor officiating to something is up? Because you've gone and you've spotted the smallest of details is someone holding a hand. But then Saka is bundled over in the box. What makes somebody look at that piece of footage and say, that's not a penalty, Tom?
The honest answer is I don't know. I don't know how you look at that footage and say, if the referee's not given that as a penalty for whatever reason, and that we always talk about this whole clear and obvious error kind of line that's peddled about. But to be honest, that is only there, I feel as though, so that the officiating kind of has an air of error that they can have, an area of error that they're allowed, and they can then point to this. It's not a clear and obvious error as the reason why they've not turned over the decision. I don't know why that's not been given. And from when I went onto social media immediately, not necessarily to get the reaction of Arsenal fans, because we all know it was going to be, but actually more so to get like the commentators and the pundits and their viewers, they were reacting in real time. And everyone seemed perplexed as to why that hadn't been given as a penalty. And again, like if we go on and we somehow concede later and it's 1-1, or say you don't score and it ends 0-0, that'll be the third time 2/3 through the season that we should then be getting an apology from the PGMOL. That's ludicrous. Like, it's ludicrous to think that you would deserve 3 apologies, because we've had 2 already about the officiating. What you said on the kind of the promotion relegation thing, like for me, like if you get relegated, the idea is that obviously, yes, I get the argument of why should they be lumbered with the poor officials and all of that stuff.
Yeah, it could affect
like,
promotions as well, couldn't it? I
mean, of course,
decisions like this.
It's more to encourage like greater just consistency and greater astuteness in decision making, and just to be more on it and more focused, and to make sure that you are making the right call, giving things enough time to check the right things in certain moments. But I think that we will forever be moaning about officiating, whether we use VAR, whether we don't use VAR. It's just going to be one of those things, unfortunately, that we just always moan about. Because if you go to other countries, like it's moaned about, until we get to a point where we're using artificial intelligence to kind of assess games, which in a way, the semi-automatic offsides in a way are starting to go into that direction where it's just robotics that are looking at camera angles, getting kind of the outline of the player and measuring that with all the different camera angles inside the stadium. Like that's the way to go forwards, really. But then you get to things like that are subjective, like whether something's a red card, whether something is enough for a penalty, a foul to be given in the box. Like that does require the human intervention. And that's, I think, always going to cause discrepancies. But for me, it's these kind of obvious instances that are proving to be too frequent, not just for us, but across the league and across Europe as well. That's becoming a real big issue. It's just the frequency of the obvious that we're missing out on at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. We will need human sort of to look at things in certain aspects. I mean, the Chelsea Spurs game was a prime example of that the other day. It was given a red card. If you look at it, he went, I think it was Ziyech, went to push. I think it was Royale at the time. He went to push him. His arm clearly slipped up his shoulder and hit him in the face by accident. Royale made a huge deal out of something that was nothing. But then when they went back and looked at it, yes, maybe by the pedantic letter of the law, you could have said it's a sending off. But when you look at it and realize it wasn't a deliberate act, then that was the human part of it. But Mo, coming over to you. Look, I don't want to sit. I know I've been accused of conspiracy theories and this, that, and the other, so I don't really want to go into it too much. But at the same time, when you start looking at how we're treated in the media, how we're hated by certain factions of the media, and how they really want us to fail, you get that. When you start looking at so many errors in judgment on something that's meant to be a safeguard to avoid such things, what doesn't that start to make you question it at all? I know you're a logical guy. This is why I'm asking you, because I can run away with things. But it's surely at some point we need to start questioning sort of like human error to, it's getting a bit much now, isn't it? You're muted, by the way. Human error.
Look, it has been the case for ages. Go back to the game that ended our 49 unbeaten run. I mean, that I don't think I've ever seen a worse display of officiating than that. And, it just happens all the bloody time. And it has been happening for years and years and years. That's the frustrating thing about it. There's no improvement, and that's because there's no accountability, doesn't drive any better standards. But the sad thing is, I wouldn't be surprised if certain kind of opinions within the game are held that actually makes our league exciting. It drives a lot of conversation, a lot of content and passion when all of this stuff is analyzed. I'm not saying they do it intentionally, but I'm saying actually it brings a whole new facet into our league that some people might say it might be a bit more boring if they just got things right. Obviously, we want that as fans because it really sucks to be on the wrong side of it, but there just seems to be no interest in really getting this incompetence out of the league. So we just have to live with it, man. And I've always said this as well, right? I try not to talk about referees. I really like trying to avoid it. And I've always said that if you're good enough, the referees become a really, really small part of the game. Like you might win 4-1 instead of 4-0. But if you're not very good, then they become a massive part of the game because you're reliant on them in a way to get things right. So Arsenal, thankfully this season, in spite of all of the awful decisions we've had, and it really, really feels like we've had more, like you say, when it comes to us, there's always something. When it comes to others, it's like, no, we don't even need to look at it. Holding a hand, goal disallowed. Saka getting bundled over, let's not even look at it. It does feel like that. But thankfully, Arsenal have been so good that, like Tom said, it's in spite of the referees that we're doing so well. And, you mentioned earlier about the defender slipping and therefore taking Saka out. It doesn't matter. A lot of fouls are not intentional fouls. You try and win the ball. You try and tackle someone and you end up not doing what you meant to do. So when people slip, it's not what they meant to do. Still doesn't mean it's not a foul. The only differentiating factor is if someone slips, you'll turn around and say, okay, not a yellow card. No matter what the injury might come out of it or where it's on the field, if it's clearly a slip, you turn around and say, fine, fair enough, not a yellow card. These things happen, but it is still a foul because you've still denied an advantage or gained an unfair advantage. So it should have been a penalty. I would have taken in that situation, penalty, no yellow card. I would have been happy.
No, I agree. It's a strange one though. I mean, I watched yesterday. I think it was Dermot Gallagher and a couple of the Sky presenters as well. All looked at this. 3 people in a room, and they've all looked at it and said it's a penalty. So I just struggle to understand what people in this VAR studios are doing when they look at that and say it's not a penalty. I struggle to believe that anyone who's a professional who knows the game inside out would look at that and genuinely in their hearts believe that's not a pen. And that's where I start to struggle with this, because what other reason have you got to not give it? And the guys in the chat, let me know your thoughts on this, and also any examples you could hark back to recently, ideally, not going back as far as the Invincibles run, etc. But more recently, if you can come up with any scenarios, just as reminders that were clearly, fouls or penalties or decisions that went against us, would be good to hear. Wayne, very quickly, Wayne Sage, thank you for your support, brother. I know you're always here. Big up, Lev, Moh and Tom. Was just watching ESR and Kvyat get 45 minutes each in the under-21s versus Chelsea. Is it me, or does VAR look for any reason to disallow an Arsenal goal? And look, do you guys not feel that way? Be honest with me, right? Tom, I'll start with you. When you see Arsenal score, there's not something in you is just waiting for a VAR check, or when you hear VAR's involved, is there not something in you just thinking to yourself, they're going to disallow this? You're muted. VAR.
I'm over there. In terms of I remember the game we had against Crystal Palace a few years ago, the game when, I think it was the game that Xhaka actually stormed off the pitch and Socrates scored, and then it got ruled out. And that would have taken us to 3-2, I think, in the game. And that was the first time I'd been in a ground where a goal had been scored and then VAR had ruled it out and everyone had already gone crazy celebrating. And I think from that moment on, there's always been part of me that's just kind of waiting for something. Do you remember the goal we scored against Man United and Nketiah in the last minute? I felt like I couldn't enjoy that because I was so sure he was offside.
Yeah,
in that
100%.
moment, and it's this is going to get ruled out. I just know it, and I didn't celebrate it. I just didn't celebrate that goal because I was so certain it was going to get ruled out. Thank God I was wrong. But yeah, there is always going to be part of me that I feel that I just can't quite 100% commit myself. It's another reason why I don't think I'd ever do a watch along, because you just put yourself in such a dangerous position of celebrating like mad and then it getting ruled out and looking very silly. But yeah, it has taken a little bit of the magic out of things for sure.
Fair enough. I'm the same actually, Tom. I routinely don't celebrate goals when I feel like there's a chance, and the thing is, you never know. It's got to be a pretty cast iron goal for me to really get lost in the moment, because now I'm just and it's not out of a desire to not look silly. I don't care. I really don't mind that. I'm in a stadium. I want to celebrate, but It's just that, as soon as that ball goes in the back of the net, I'm thinking, oh crap, I hope this is a goal. And that's what's dominating my thoughts at that point. So and then it is hard. I have to admit, it is hard after it gets confirmed to then have that outpouring of emotion because everyone's all sort of done it. And that's when you'd look like a real mug, like, sometimes a minute later going, ah! It's like, everyone's like, yeah, we know, mate. We just did that 60 seconds ago.
Yeah.
It was like the Trossard goal. I've tweeted out in big bold capitals, Trossard, and then a few minutes later,
I did it on the live blog, mate. I was like, "What a hit!"
And it was a great strike. It was a great finish. It's like, really, really disappointing to have that chalked off. But also, we haven't mentioned it because I felt that it was probably offside at first glance, but there was an offside decision on one of our goals that we had scored that was given offside. No lines were shown, nothing was given. But then you had the United game the other day where it looked offside and somehow they were drawn and showed us it was onside and it disappeared off the screen quickly. I mean, some have even suggested there might have been it might have been onside. I don't know. But like, why have they not done that? Why have they not shown it up on the screen?
I don't know. Yeah, there isn't an answer, mate. It's just I don't know. Well, I don't know why they've not shown it.
Fair enough. All right. Well, look, the positive thing is we got our 3 points. Jorginho put in another great performance. It meant that Partey didn't really have to come on. He came on with about 10 minutes to go. Things that I noticed in that game was the potentials of what could happen in the midfields further down the line now, because Partey was brought on with Jorginho and Xhaka still on the pitch, right? And I think Odegaard was taken off. Is that something that could happen in future, do you think? I mean, I'm always thinking potentially when Partey's back, you could even have Partey, Jorginho and Odegaard. I mean, is this something that we could be doing? Mo, I'll start with you. Is this something you could see happening in future now that we've got a bit more, with Jorginho's form, for example? Is he too good to drop right now?
No. I don't think it's too good to drop. We need to not get carried away. Jorginho, given his age and his price point and all that sort of stuff, is indicative of a player that is not going to be week in, week out, stellar performances. He has come in to do a supporting job, and he's doing that really, really well right now. So let's not get ahead of ourselves and think, oh, he's the answer. I think if we manage his fitness and make sure that, he's got the legs, because you do see him wane in games where he does play 90 minutes. He's from minute one, he's not a physical beast, and he's much less so in minute 90. So I think let's kind of keep our perspective on him and realize that he's not going to be that dominant midfielder throughout the whole game. And also, I wouldn't want to play Partey, Xhaka, and Jorginho in the vast majority of games. Man City away, maybe you can make a case for it. If we have like a bit of a front three that are going to go for it and we try and go a little bit more conservative in some way. But if you're going to do that, who are you taking out the team? And, if someone's talking about taking Odegaard out of the team, I'm not having that conversation. Odegaard covers so much ground, does so much work, is sort of the leader of the press so often for Arsenal that I wouldn't take him out. I just can't help but think, and I know this is sort of me being a bit unappreciative right now because Partey, Xhaka, Jorginho, they've been, obviously Jorginho hasn't been that long, but from what I've seen of their time in an Arsenal shirt this season, they've all been really, really good. Xhaka is starting to dip a little bit, and as I've mentioned on this podcast many a time, I think that's because teams now have a plan for him. So he's not getting all that space afforded to him as he usually would. Jorginho, we know what his downsides are. And I just think to myself, can you imagine a truly dominant centre mid in this Arsenal team? A Bellingham or a Milinkovic-Savic in this team? And I just think to myself, wow. Especially Bellingham, because that guy is literally box to box and can do absolutely everything. Though Savic is a brilliant world-class player as well. And I just think that elevates Arsenal to a new level if we can make one of those two happen. So especially this January, we didn't get any of our first choice targets. We did really good business. And let's remind ourselves, Jorginho and Trossard, two players who did brilliantly in the last couple of games, they are the January transfer signings. So well done to the club for having that plan B and executing that plan B rather than just wasting time after we find out Mudryk is not going to happen and Caicedo is not going to happen. They've done well and got in solid players. But, Tom, I'd love to know what you think. A Savic, a Bellingham. I mean, doesn't that just make your mouth water at the thought of that?
Can we throw in Rice into that equation as well, Tom?
I don't think he's the same level. I don't think he's the same level, personally.
He's different. He's a different kind of player. He's not, Bellingham and Savic are guys that are going to just level up the way in which you progress the ball into the box. Rice can progress the ball, but he does it from a deep position. He's the guy I think that would eventually take over from Partey, in the future. I don't think he does it immediately, but certainly comes as a great competition and can arguably play in that left-8 role. But yeah, you're right, Mo. And for me, this is always the big compliment to Granit Xhaka, because if Arsenal can find an upgrade on Granit Xhaka, that's great. But that task in of itself is tough. Yeah. And that's a compliment to Xhaka because he's just made that position so hard to upgrade upon. Like for me, a lot of people wanted us to sign Moises Caicedo, for instance, in January. Like he didn't start for us and we were willing to spend way over his market value to bring him in to bring that competition. Like he doesn't start over Xhaka or Partey in our midfield at the moment, either of those two positions. Certainly adds competition the same way that Trossard and Jorginho have both done. But to find someone that's going to upgrade any of the three starters in our midfield is going to cost you a lot of money. It's going to be hard to find. I don't think Bellingham, unfortunately, is going to happen. I just think the club see him as too far out of their both price and wage demands. £150 million is what it's going to cost. And I think City and the like are going to look to spend over £300,000 per week on it, which completely wrecks our wage bracket, especially when we're paying Saka a new contract, which seems to be around £200,000, which obviously we learned about this week, which is also great news. But yeah, look, if we can upgrade the midfield in the summer, that'd be an amazing, and again, a big props to Edu if he can do it, because and the whole recruitment team, because getting that player in is a big task.
Yeah.
While we're on this subject, then, so what do you think the idea of bringing Rice is then? Because would they bring in Rice and another midfielder, or would they be maybe thinking of rejigging things a little bit and having Rice play in the DM role, and maybe have Partey go up a little bit more? He could play in Xhaka's role, or what do you think the plans are?
I think Rice is going to be it if he is the guy that we sign. I think he'd be the only midfielder we bring in. I think that obviously they rate Charlie Patino exceptionally highly, and they look at him as potentially a Saka level talent coming through. And so in terms of the potential, not in terms of his position, but certainly in midfield, he can play as the 6, he can play as the 8, and has done really well at Blackpool. He's not perfect because he's still young and he's still raw, same as Saliba wasn't perfect at Marseille. But getting that
yesterday, did he?
Experience. Sorry?
He didn't play yesterday, did he? Patino was on the bench, I think.
No, he got sent off against Swansea for 2 yellow cards, and then they dropped him after he was suspended. He didn't come off the bench. I think they were a bit frustrated with that red card because it was immature, which for a player of his age is, it was a silly tackle to make when he was already on a yellow. But he don't make no bones about it. He's been really good for Blackpool. Not only that, but I don't know if you saw Marquinhos scored and assisted on his debut for Norwich as well. Yeah. And if he plays like he played that game throughout the rest of this season, you start to see the reasons why we were willing to chuck €3.5 million on this guy. To do it at championship level, you think of Amad Diallo, the guy at Manchester United. He's currently with Sunderland, scored 8 goals in the championship. He was incredibly highly rated. So if you can start getting into double digits between now and the end of the season for goal contributions, Marquinhos will be targeting that. That's certainly one to watch out for. But for me, in terms of transfers in the summer at the moment, I'm looking at a midfielder being brought in, a fullback being brought in, potentially on either side, because if Tierney and Tavares leave, you're going to need a new left back. And I think we needed a different style of right back potentially as well to come in that gives us a little bit more going forwards. Like we can't just bring off Ben White for Tomiyasu when we need something more from our fullback because it's just too similar. We need something else. And then arguably
McAllister being linked with us.
He has, but I don't know if that's... I feel as with McAllister, it's kind of a World Cup player, if you know what I mean. I've not necessarily... He's not necessarily sold me that he's the guy that we should go for.
Interesting, because I am sold on McAllister. I think he's got real quality. It's actually Caicedo I'm not sold on.
Really? Yeah, I'm the other way around. I really like Caicedo.
I prefer Onana to Caicedo. I think he was brilliant against us. brilliant.
He was very good against us, which usually does help. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and listen, don't get me wrong. I was saying Rice isn't the same level. Rice is quality. Rice is really, really good. I do like him a lot, but I don't think that he's like a physically dominant. I just kind of feel like, well, look at Bellingham play. He goes up against anyone. I just think you're just going to get shrugged off here. Like, he does not lose duels, and that's an area where I think Arsenal can really, really improve this season. You look at it statistically, and I think Rice is, as I say, very good player, but not like just that beast that I would love this team to have.
Yeah, and you could argue in the Xhaka's position, you could argue Smith Rowe could even play there. But I mean, he's got to stay fit first, so that's another thing. But I've got a lot of hopes for Smith Rowe still. But moving on very quickly then. So in amongst all of this, then you had the Europa League draw. And like I don't know how he was a Nostradamus in this, but Tom actually suggested he wanted Sporting Lisbon. I think it was in the draw. He actually said, I want Sporting Lisbon. And lo and behold, I checked the draws as they flashed up and Sporting Lisbon came in. Now, obviously you guys...
He also said, I want Trossard in the false nine. And he got that as well, didn't he?
Yeah, is there something...
I want us to win the league. Can I just put that out there? Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's it. Go to William Hills if you are a betting type. I'm not, but go to William Hills and put it on there. Put the trilogy down there. You could have done that. You could have gone for Trossard in the false nine. You could have done the whole lot, and you could have made a killing on Tom Canton. But Tom did say he wanted Sporting Lisbon. We got Sporting Lisbon. I think you were saying, Tom, you're a bit more clued up on these things than I am because I haven't been watching Portuguese football recently. But you suggested that they're probably the best draw for us.
Yeah, and since getting the draw, and I've spoken to a couple of people who are much more akin to watching Portuguese football than I am, that's certainly been affirmed. I did a piece on FL, speaking to a Sporting supporter, a friend of mine, Jose Miguel, and he kind of outlined how they are the fourth best team in Portugal this season. And if you're the fourth best Portuguese team, you're usually Braga. That's usually the way that it works. It's fair usually... Porto and Benfica fighting out for the title, Sporting third, and then Braga are usually the fourth. Now, Sporting won the title 2 years ago and have kind of dropped since then. They've lost a few of their players. Ruben Amorim, the coach that came in when they won the title, has unfortunately just gradually lost player after player since that title. They lost Palhinha to Fulham, who's done really, really well since going there. Yes. They lost Mateus Nunes to Wolves. Obviously, in January, they lost their best player. Pedro Porro went to Tottenham, had a nightmare debut, but he went there and he was their best player. They still have some good players. They've got Pedro Gonçalves, who's a really good young Portuguese talent, can play wide, can play centre forward, can play in centre midfield, can score goals from all those areas. They've got Marcus Edwards, previously of Tottenham, and their youth academy. Probably people know him from the Champions League group stage. He's
been doing well out there, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's done well, and certainly made a game for himself out there on several occasions. Since they lost Palhinha, they've got a guy in midfield called Agate, who's a Uruguayan 21-year-old midfielder. He's suspended for the first leg, and he's probably their best midfielder. So they won't even have their best midfielder for that game. So he's going to be missing. And then you've got Hector Bellerin, of course, who came in January from Barcelona. He's kind of the Pedro Porro replacement. If he plays on that right wing-back position when we play them, he's their better option. They've got another guy, older guy, who when I spoke to my pal Jose about it, he basically said, if this guy, I think it's Agacho, he's a really Portuguese surname that I'll butcher the pronunciation of, but it's... He said if he plays, we've got no chance, and Martinelli will rip up our right-hand side. So fingers crossed he plays. It's what we've got to hope for. But, they're still a decent team. They'll still have threats. They'll still certainly threaten. They got a big young striker coming through as well, 18 years of age. Chamiti is his name. Off the top of my head, I think that's right. And he could be a threat in the air. So one to watch out for. And they got some really quick centre-backs as well. They've just brought in Diamande as well, who we were linked to in January. He's a young guy. But they've got Saint Just, who those people on FIFA will know very well because he's like a centre-back with 90-odd pace. So they'll know him very well. He's very quick. And they've got Ignacio, who plays left centre-back as well. He's very quick too. So, they've got some players. Coates, who used to play for Liverpool, of course, is in their defence too. I'm trying to think beyond that. I think that's about it.
I don't think I've heard you mention Gonçalves.
Yeah, I said him first.
Oh, you said him first. Fair enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
I zoned out at that point because, yeah, he is a really good player. And he's one that I'm surprised hasn't had more attention in Europe and potentially even had a move because he had a stunning season a couple of years ago where he got 20-plus goals. And this season, he's got 12 and 20. Real eye for goal, very comfortable in front of goal. So, yeah, we can't take him lightly. And I think he might get on a lot of people's radar if he has a good couple of games against Arsenal.
I mean, it's also an opportunity to play players that aren't playing. Question is getting the balance right, isn't it? Because I'm guessing we're going to be making a lot of changes to try and cope with this fixture list that's coming through thick and fast. But do you see, I mean, how do you guys see it panning out? Do you see him going for Europa as well with like as strong a team as possible? Do you think he's going to be focusing more on the league and trying to get some of these like the Tomiyasus and Tierneys of this world playing and Holdings and that sort of thing? What do you see him doing?
Do you say me or Mo?
Either one of you guys. Tom, you can start.
Mo, do you want to go? I took the last one.
Go on, Tom. No, you go, Tom.
No, you go, Mo.
No, because it was breaking up for me. So
okay.
That's why I said.
Okay. So I'm just asking how you think he's going to approach it. Is he going to go with a strong side, as strong as what he puts in the Prem, or do you think he's just going to balance it and sort of focus more on the Prem?
I think that they'll make changes, and I think this will be the opportunity to use the likes of Fabio Vieira, Kivior, who, by the way, I watched in the first half of the under-21s against Chelsea, and this guy's passing is really, really impressive. Progressively switches play really nicely, finds the spaces. You know, Gabriel is probably his biggest thing to work on is his passing. He's been really good recently. It's definitely getting better, but his biggest part of his game is his passing that he needs to work on. So if we are struggling to progress the ball from the back, you can bring Kivior in because I think he's up there with our best passers out from the back from the small amount I saw there, and obviously from what I looked at him when I was playing for Spezia when we were signing him. So he's interesting. Obviously, you've got Tierney Tomiyasu. You've got two starting quality fullbacks to come in there. I've been impressed with Matt Turner recently as well in goal. Yeah. He's not, for me, done very well at the World Cup as well. Smith Rowe has got to get minutes. We've got to get him game time. By the Europa League, fingers crossed, Gabriel Jesus will be back. And that's maybe something where we can ease him back into the fray and giving him time to then get up to speed for the Premier League. And I mean, Reece Nelson's there, but I don't think you necessarily have to start. I think you can probably start the likes of maybe Xhaka, probably Saka still. You maybe take him out for one game, play Vieira there if you wanted, play Smith Rowe at 10. But we've got loads of options, you know. And Jorginho and Partey, you know, having those two, one of them is going to start the Europa games. That's great as well.
Yeah.
It's just to think at the end of last season where we had like 4 or 5 kids on the bench in every game, to go from that to where we are now is such a big step up. And it's a testament, you know, the recruitment again and how we've got there.
Yeah, Jorginho would be ideal for the Europa League, in my opinion. That's a good shout. Mo, what do you want to see him do? Do you want to see him focus more on the Prem and give these guys a run out?
No, look, man, I think we have to just go for it. I think we have to go for both. You know, it's not enough to just be like, you know, I don't want to sound greedy, right? There's no guarantees we're going to win the league, but we're in a very, very good position. But it's not enough for me, given where we are now. I think potentially favourites for the Europa League, and who knows, favourites for the Premier League. You know, that's maybe perhaps still City. Not at the moment.
Oh, we are at the moment.
When do we say they're favourites?
After we've played them, after we've played City away, that's when I think you categorically say either City or Arsenal favourites. If it's 5 points after we play City, we are favourites, obviously. And if it's 2 points, then I think it's City. A little bit more difficult if it's a draw. But anyway, look, I think Arsenal have to go for both. And that will require some rotation. But we have to remember that the teams that we're competing against in the league are also going to suffer that. They're also going to be playing every 3-4 days and actually more because they've got FA Cup involvement that we don't have. So, look, we just have to go for it, man. I want to see Arsenal win a double this year.
Fair enough. I mean, it is possible, I guess, and why not? All right, so then looking forward outside of the Europa, we've still got the upcoming fixtures of Everton and Bournemouth. So Everton is on Wednesday, I believe, and then Bournemouth on the weekend, both at home. Now, this is an opportunity. we've got a run of home games coming up. Then it's imperative for me that we secure 100% on the points if we can. Get a win on every single home game. If we do that, puts us in a strong position. Now, Everton, obviously, we know what happened when we went away to them. I think we owe them a little something. I think we're going to go into this game trying to get some serious revenge here. So let's start with you, Mo. How do you see Wednesday going? And over the 2 games, what happens with the lineup? Does he mix it up? Does he keep it the same? And a prediction, by the way.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well,
actually, I'm first on the prediction, so you can go.
Yeah, we've already done the predictions, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
But I see destruction on Wednesday. I think Arsenal are going to batter Everton because it's a revenge mission. Let's not make 2 bones about it. That was a really annoying flipping defeat to Everton. So I think we go and absolutely destroy them. I think we will be comfortable. I think it will be 2 or 3-0. And yeah, I'm going to go 2-0. I'm going to go more conservative on it.
I've got your predictions from last time. You actually said 2-0, yeah. I said 3-0. Okay. I said 3-0. Tom said 1-0. You said 2-0. So there you go.
I said 1-0 for Leicester. That's so annoying.
Yeah.
I was like, correct score.
I said 2-0 for Leicester.
Yeah.
And it could easily have been that if it wasn't for VAR. But there you go.
But none of us got a right score for Leicester. But yeah,
No.
I think it will be completely a dominant performance. Whether goals flow from that or not and really assert that dominance is a different thing, right? But I think like we did against Leicester, we'll absolutely wipe the floor with them. So yeah, I can't wait, man. Just can't wait. This is our game in hand. Let's get those points on the board and all the pressure on Man City.
Right. Tom, I mean, how do you see Arteta handling these 2 fixtures? Do you see him going with the same team for the Wednesday game, managing it depending on how we're doing, say 60 minutes or so if we're a couple of goals up, sort of protecting players for them to play on the weekend in mind? Or do you think there will be 2 different teams?
I think there'll be small tweaks, and that's what Arteta does. You know, in these Premier League games in particular, he wants to go as strong as possible. So I think Eddie Nketiah will come back in for Trossard, and I think that he'll be the player that makes way. Outside of that, Partey will probably start over Jorginho, and that will probably be the 2 changes that we see from the Leicester game. That will probably be it in terms of it. There's potential to see maybe Vieira coming for Xhaka, just because he might want to have more attacking potential against he knows a team that's going to try and sit back and hit him on the counter. But I'd be surprised if he did that. The team are motivated. You know, I was fortunate enough to speak to Shaheen's favourite player in the world after the game on Saturday. And
did you ask for his autograph on his behalf?
It's just frowned upon. You can't.
You need
do
to
that,
get
mate.
him a signed shirt. Shaheen, a signed shirt from.
Can you imagine me as a journalist going down, be like, "Can I have an autograph?"
Yeah. Can you make it out to Shaheen?
Yeah. Shaheen and Sweet Munchkin on their trousers.
Oh God.
Yeah. But no, he was asked. He wasn't asked by me. He was asked, but I think it was Sam Dean that asked the question. It might have been Simon Collins actually. He said, "That's the motivation. The game we had there, the performance. Everyone was really upset. We want to show a different side on Wednesday, and we get another 3 points." They really, really care about that game that they lost, and they felt. I mean, when I was standing in the bowels of Goodison Park, because I don't know if I talked about this before. You know, in Goodison Park, as the players leave the dressing room to go out to the coach, they have to walk past the mix zone, but they had closed the exit to the stadium. So, because I think something was going on outside, because it's really tight. Like if you've been to Goodison Park, like the roads around Goodison Park are really tight and small. So when the coach is there, obviously the fans have got quite easy access. So they had the door closed, and all the Arsenal players were like standing around us, waiting to get on the coach. And that, like, just obviously you'd be frustrated because you've lost and stuff, and then you're having to wait around. But you know, they looked so dejected and really angry with what had happened in the game. So they don't need any extra motivation at all. And it'd be interesting to hear from Arteta tomorrow morning is his press conference about what he thinks of the game as well.
Oh, you're at that press conference, aren't you? Because you're not doing a show tomorrow morning, mate.
No show tomorrow. No.
Don't know what I'm going to do in the morning.
What's the presser?
Yeah, I guess so, mate. I guess so.
Also interesting about Nketiah, is he going to come straight back in the team? Because look, Martinelli got dropped against Villa, came on as a sub. Just like Nketiah got dropped against Leicester, came on as a sub, started the next game. But Martinelli responded. Obviously, you got that goal, which is a very fortunate goal. But he responded very well. And then match winner against Leicester. I wonder if Nketiah is going to react in the same way, whether he'll get the start. But I wanted to ask you guys, in your minds, did Nketiah get dropped for tactical reasons or purely for form against Leicester?
Ooh. I would personally say, knowing Arteta, that I personally would have thought he'd done it to give him a rest because he's been playing non-stop. But then, wouldn't surprise me if he did it for tactical reasons. He might have seen Trossard in training playing that false nine. I guess Tom will have more of a take on it.
What was the question?
Oh, mate. Right, okay, go on.
Yeah, did Nketiah get dropped purely for tactical reasons, or was it mostly for form reasons, let's say?
I think when he was asked about why he dropped Martinelli, he said, I didn't drop him. He's played every game. And so he needed a rest. And I think if you asked him, he'd say the same. And I do believe him. I think it was to rest. I think it was for rotation.
So tell me this. So if we truly believe that it was to rest, you know, the 2 chances he had against City and the 2 chances he had against Villa, if he scores 4 goals in those 2 games, does he still get the rest?
Of course he does. Ooh. Not.
How many times has Haaland been rested? How many times has Kane rested? You know,
that's an interesting point. That's an interesting point, Mo, because in fairness to Trossard, the one chance he got, he buried it. And then the opportunity to make an assist, really, I think it's gone under the radar a little bit, that assist, because it was a little leg step over first and then a nutmeg ball through at the perfect time. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the question is, should Trossard get dropped?
Yeah, it's difficult because we use this word dropped, don't we? And it seems kind of a harsh terminology of it. But it is. They are being dropped if they are. That's what it is on paper. But I think that the players understand that they're in a situation whereby there is going to be change. There is going to have to wait your time. You know, Trossard would have joined Arsenal knowing that if he'd have stayed at Brighton, he would have played every single game between now and the end of the season. But he knew he was moving to Arsenal to take that next step. And he knew that in doing that, he was going to get less minutes because you've already got Martinelli there. He would have moved knowing that. So the players that are still at the club, maybe besides Kieran Tierney, will be very aware and comfortable in knowing that they are going to have to bide their time and wait. You know, Kivior signing knows Gabriel's there. Jorginho knows Partey's there, even though he started 15 games for Chelsea this season. But of course, there was a different scenario with Enzo Fernandez coming in there as well. But yeah, it's difficult to just categorize it and say they've been dropped and we have to overanalyze why they've been dropped. I just think it's rotation. And I think it's something in Arteta's Arsenal, no pun intended, that needs to be worked on. It's his rotation, his management between game to game. And especially next season with the Champions League, he is going to have to step up and learn how to rotate like Pep does and maintain momentum and effectiveness.
I think I like that response, Tom, because, you know, you can say it's dropped. And actually, I do believe that Nketiah got dropped in the true sense of the word. But when we see changes in future weeks, especially with Europa League, you know, dropped is a bit of a loaded term. And as I say, I mean that for Nketiah on this occasion. But if Trossard comes out, he hasn't been dropped in that sense. That's just squad management. And we are going to have to see a lot of that.
I mean, it's funny you say, I mean, the whole thing with Tierney is a little bit different to everywhere else. And Tom, I think you're right in mentioning that, because the Tierney one, you could argue that he's looking at that and he thinks to himself, even if, you know, Zinchenko gets injured or comes out, he knows he's going to go straight back in the minute he's fit again, Zinchenko's fit again, because it's more of a tactical reason that Zinchenko's in there and the way he can play in that central midfield position, you know, when he needs to and he tuck in there, whereas potentially Arteta's looking at Tierney, doesn't think he could fulfill that role. And that's a different scenario for someone like Tierney. You can understand maybe his frustration, but the rest of them, they could excuse it as, well, it's rotation, you know, and it's nice to know that we have got another option to Eddie, in a sense of somebody that's a little bit more clever he hasn't got the pace, but he can run in behind and make spaces. So that is a good thing to have. However, it's a weird one, because when I watched us at the beginning of that game, I did miss having that sort of more physical presence up top. Did either of you feel that way when you were watching it? Because Eddie was a bit more physically, he's present there and he causes problems with the defenders. He's trying to get in front of the ball, hold it up. Whereas Trossard plays in a different way. He comes a little bit deeper, finds spaces, turns.
But no, I didn't at all. No, I thought Trossard did really well. You can play many different styles as a striker. You can kind of be the target man, backing into defenders. You can come up deep, and it's more about people running off you. So I don't really have a default favorite, right? It's just game by game. You hope that a player can, find what works and figure out. Quite Trossard, he was very effective in that role. The amount of times he was between lines, I thought he's the Martinelli, Saka as well. Very happy with it. I didn't miss more physicality up front because I didn't feel like it was necessarily needed in the game.
Fair enough. No, I mean, he did grow into the game as it went on for me, and it is nice to know that we have got alternatives, although, I just want Jesus back. I'm not going to lie. There's a few, a few minutes. If anyone want to ask questions, drop them in now. We're not going to keep these guys too long today. It's evening time. But anything else you guys want to discuss at all while we're waiting for some questions
Saka's
to come
getting
in?
a new contract from the sounds of things, which
he is getting
great.
A new contract. Is that actually being signed, or is it just agreed?
There's an agreement in principle from the sounds of things, which basically means it's done, and they're just waiting for the right time to announce it. That's basically how I perceive that to be.
Everyone's
and Jesus is
waiting on
apparently
the
going to be
Saliba
back
one.
before the international break as well.
When is the international break?
It's after Palace, so it's 4 Premier League games away. So within 4 Premier League games, they're hoping he's going to be back, which is the way to look at it, which is quite good.
Wow. Okay. And
last 10 games of the season, 10 Premier League games with Jesus is what we should have him for.
Yeah.
Well, if we're still in the hunt before, whilst we've had him gone and he comes back, it's only going to add more momentum to us, I think.
We're talking a bit about Eddie Nketiah there, and I think that's the best way to look at it, because when we were, I think it's the Brighton game, so Brighton, it was 4-2 to us, wasn't it? Let me just find the table at that point in time. We were 7 points clear of Man City after we beat Brighton 4-2. So we entered 2023 7 points clear of City. Obviously, that's 2 games played, 2 games won without Jesus, and Nketiah scored in both those games against West Ham and Brighton. You've then gone from the start of 2023 to nearly 3 months into 23. We're going into March soon. When we play Everton, it will be, wasn't it? Would it be? Yeah, it will be 1st of March, isn't it, when we play Everton? So tomorrow. I think that, and we could still be 5 points clear of City, and it means that Jesus being out has cost us 2 points from City. I think, if anything, that shows you how much of a job Nketiah has done in the period of time that Jesus has been out.
Yeah, I think the way, what I've noticed with Arteta is he's got a system, and he could literally take out. Look at you guys mentioned earlier on. We weren't really in for Trossard. We weren't really in for Jorginho. We had other targets prior to them, but because we had a plan B, it seems that he has plans for players that fit the system. So he could take somebody out, and even if Trossard isn't your first choice, he still slips into that system perfectly. And the same has gone for Eddie. Yes, okay, he's not Jesus, but then he still has the abilities to keep going in that system. Very quickly, there's a few things in the chat. Firstly, Agal talks. How you doing, bro? Left Tom, Mo. How's it going, guys? Agal, how you doing, bro? Good to hear from you, man. There's a question here. Lone Star Londoner. If we lose to Everton, is the title over? Cool, that's a doom and gloom question, but there you go.
Man, not
There's always one. There's always
one.
one.
Mathematically, it's not, is it? Well, it's not even. What? No.
Impossible for it to be over, given that we're we'll be 2 points clear even if we lose. So of course it's not over. And on top of that, when you've just seen Arsenal drop points and then Man City go to Nottingham Forest away and not win, you just don't know. And
we haven't done that in years, Mo.
Pardon?
To be fair, I think we've been up there a few times and lost as well. Yeah,
but who thought Man City were going to not win, especially going 1-0 up like that, especially the chances Haaland had. Look, the key message, honestly, that Arsenal fans need to really take on is back the boys until the very, very end. Even if we go into that final day needing to better Man City's result or whatever it might be, back the boys till the very, very end. So much can change in that crucial period. Tom spoke about getting Jesus back in the last 10 games, right? You know, the games, we've got 5 games left until the 1st of April where we play Leeds. And those 5 games, you look at them, all of them are winnable. In fact, it was actually 6 games. We've just done one of them, Leicester. Yeah. The other 5, you look at them all, they are all very, very winnable. We've got a very tough April. But if we can get 18 from 18, and I know it's a big ask because it's a tough league, but if we can't get 18 from 18, we're in an unbelievable position. Even if we go and get like 14 from 18, 15 from 18, whatever, we'll be in a very, very good position. Because at this stage, having seen what we've seen from Man City, I don't think anyone would really put their house on the fact that they'd expect Man City to win 5 out of 5 or 6 out of 6.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. I think it's the message is City are not going to win the rest of their games. They're not going to do that. They are going to drop points, and we're probably going to drop points. It sounds such a Michael Owenism, isn't it? But it's just who drops the least points between now and the end of the season.
Whoever ends up at top at the end wins the league.
Yeah, exactly. But also how the European competition intertwines with the league form as well. So it'll be very interesting to see whether Man City or Arsenal suffer the worst hangovers, because there will be hangovers. We saw that when Arsenal played Man City, and then on the weekend we were both not at it. So yeah, listen, there's so much to go. We shouldn't be asking questions like that about the league being over. And also, I'll say this: Man City can lose the next 2 games, Arsenal can win the next 2 games. Likewise, the league isn't won. There's a lot of highs and lows and swings and roundabouts, and it'll be a massive roller coaster.
Oh, incidentally, I fancy us at the Etihad. Funnily enough, because we're gonna have Partey back, right, for a start. I think we'll be a different team. But also, I think playing away, it might suit us against City because City will come at us. They'll have to. We can counter them. I don't know. I just fancy us. It'll be great if we get revenge at the Etihad, wouldn't it?
Yeah, our away form is incredible. Yeah. Played 13, won 10. Drawn 1, lost 2, conceded 9. 31 points. We're 7 points clear of Man City on the away league table, who have played the same number of games. So our away form is absolutely incredible. But Man City away is going to be tough. They showed in the game we played against them that they just have that robustness to their team when it comes to those key games. I can't see them, I can't see them losing at home in a title decider against us.
You heard it here first, guys. Arsenal are going to beat City at the Etihad, and that's going to put us in pole position to win it. Phantom Knight Mister, do you guys think of Man United as an outsider, or are they real contenders?
8 points behind us, same number of games played. I put them as outsiders personally.
Same with you,
outsiders,
Tom?
Yeah, they're outsiders. They're not in the race at the moment. They're just kind of, they're just there.
but they are the Premier League's form team right now. I don't think in the last 5 games any team in the Premier League has got more than them. So actually, no, they drew recently as well, or perhaps like joint. I don't know.
Yeah, they've got the same amount. Their last 5 games are the same as City's.
They haven't had the toughest of runs, though, have they? From what I've seen, I'm just trying to remember.
No, but they are playing very well. They are playing very, very well. Right now, if we're being honest, who's on better form? Not just results, but to the eye, Man United or Arsenal, Man United or Man City. I'd say that perhaps to the eye, Man United are the Premier League's form team right now. So yeah, we'll see how long they can keep it up for. Hopefully, they get complacent after winning what all of a sudden now is apparently a major trophy. The little old League Cup.
God, yeah. Some are comparing it to Arteta's first season with Arsenal. So
it's honestly, it's just unbearable. But anyway,
you see the run they went on to get there. But the teams they beat to get that tournament, it's ridiculous. If you've seen it, I think someone even put it in the chat box earlier on in the show. What
was the run? I'm really interested now.
I think Charlton were in there.
Forest in the semis, Charlton in the quarters, Obviously, Newcastle in the final. I'm sure someone put it in the chat box earlier on I can't find it now, but I'm sure Lev will find it in a second. But it's really...
no pressure.
And
I haven't even seen it.
Can you imagine like the circumstances with Newcastle's goalkeeping situation for this final for United? Like perfect. Nick Pope, for me, the best keeper in the league this season. All of a sudden, he can't play. Flipping Karius, the final specialist, plays. And then on top of that, they go and concede an own goal as well, Newcastle. Like, you just couldn't make it up. Tailor-made for Man United. Everyone's pretending it's a major trophy. Hopefully it gets to their head and they just take their foot off the gas a little bit because, even as outsiders, it's just not nice to see Man United doing well. I think the world's a nicer place when Man United are suffering. And any sane human being agrees with that.
There we go. So, GB, thank you for that. Man United fixtures to win the EFL Cup. Villa under Gerrard. That was the Villa under Gerrard. Burnley, Charlton, Nottingham Forest, and finally one decent team in the final in Newcastle. Is that the run? That is
Newcastle have been poor lately as well. And they're Karius in goal.
Newcastle haven't won in the league in their last 4 games.
Yeah.
And it's so annoying, isn't it? You look at how this has just been set up for Man United. It's just perfectly. When do you want to play Newcastle? When they're firing or when they're just kind of, stuttering? Whatever.
Well, these things always happen to us. I mean, look at the other day. We had I say the other day. We had Everton.
Yeah.
When they had Lampard and then they sack him just before we played them, and then they beat us, and then since then they've been awful again. They've had the new manager bounce, and then they've been awful. So these things do happen to us. But look, we're top of the league. We're in everything right now that matters in the sense of the Europa. We're still in that. We're not in any of the cups, are we? We're not in the FA Cup anymore. Not in anything else. So look, these two are really, really important. Let's just see how it goes in the sense of how Arteta is going to manage the squad over the next few weeks. That's going to be really interesting. Can't wait for Jesus to be back. I think I'm at the game on Wednesday. Mo, you at the game on Wednesday?
Yeah.
Mate, I'm going to see you there. Don't forget to sort those things out for me. Tom, are you at the game on Wednesday? No.
Home game, innit? I go away, do the home ones from home.
They send you on the road, yeah?
Always on the road.
Hopefully Wednesday we'll get another 3 points. Mo, if I can get there early enough, I'll meet up with you. Anyone in the chat box, if you're going to go to the game, try and find Mo. Leave me alone. So I'm going to say bye to everyone. Diallo, SK, Ronnie, Lone Star. Who else is there in here? Afsar, GB, DR. All you guys in the chat. Ronnie Karma, Ronnie Pickering. It sounds like a gangster from the 60s.
I'm Ronnie Pickering.
Yeah.
Ronnie
Pickering. Know who I am, mate. I'm Ronnie Pickering.
Love him.
Yeah, we've got to get Lee Judges to do that for us. Phantom Knight, Mister. All you guys in the chat, brilliant. Please smash the likes if you haven't done so already. It really does help the channel. And also, if you haven't subscribed. Oh, and here we go. Wayne Francis, it's my B-Day, he says. So happy B-Day to you, Wayne. Thank you for letting us know that. Thank you for watching us on your birthday. And hello to Patrick M as well. Listen, guys, brilliant in the chat. Thank you to the panel as well. Interesting stuff as usual. You can find Mo on at Arsenal Mo 8 and obviously on his YouTube channel. He does his 5 at 5. Right this time, Mo. 5 at 5 with Mo. He does some really interesting points straight after the game, so keep an eye out for those. Do you want to say anything before you go, Mo?
Yeah, congrats to Emi Martinez, who's just won the FIFA Best Men's Goalkeeper Award. Well done to him. And
Men's Goalkeeper Award. Emi Martinez.
Yeah,
Emi Martinez.
He won the World Cup, so and did fairly well in it. Even though there is a theory that actually there was Livakovic who played a lot better than him. But anyway, let's not get into that.
He's also scored more goals this year than Mudryk.
And I was going to talk about.
He's not happy, by the way, apparently, which is
Emi Martinez has obviously won the best award because of the important trophy he won, and a lot of times these things are done on importance. So, if Arsenal win the league, if we go and win the Premier League for the first time in 19 years, I want him to win the Puskas Award for the importance of that goal that he scored for Arsenal against Villa. That wonderful diving header. Because man, if we look back on a successful league campaign, that is a huge moment. So well done, Emi Martinez. Puskas Award for you next year.
Excellent. That was interesting. And Tom, you can find Tom at the Gooner Talk TV every 8 a.m. every day, apart from tomorrow, because he's not doing that. So if you want to watch him tomorrow, you can't. But he'll be at the press conference tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Anything you want to add before you go, mate?
No, as always, just thanks everybody for listening. Drop a like on the video as always. One thing I will mention is two things actually. First of all, I don't know if you saw the message that went out on Twitter by Gabriel Martinelli. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that was very nice.
Yeah, very nice indeed.
I didn't see it. What was it?
So a really unfortunate story about a young Arsenal fan called Stephen. Unfortunately, lost his life.
Oh yeah, man, that was sad. Yeah, he actually, I think he actually appeared on our channel once.
Really
Nice young lad. Yeah,
I know he had his own channel, and I've
Yeah.
certainly been sharing his videos on using TGT and sharing the videos that have
man.
been going around social media. So if you can share anything that's going around to make people more aware of the things that have affected Stephen in his unfortunately short life, then please do. And our thoughts, obviously, I'm sure, with friends and family of Stephen as well.
Yeah.
So that's the sad side. The positive side is if there's anyone who's based in America or Chicago, we're going to be doing a live event called Gooner Palooza in Chicago in April. I've been very kindly invited along with the Arsenal Vision guys, Elliot and Paul, and Mike, of course, who you guys both know. He does Gooners versus Cancer, and we're doing lots of charity stuff out there. So if you're based in the US and you fancy a good time, a load of Arsenal fans, come along.
There you go. And Tom will buy you all a drink. There you go.
Yeah.
On his Football London salary. So anyway, guys, thank you for joining us. It's been another great show. We're still doing well. We're still positive, getting good results. Long may it continue. So on that note, this has been the Arsenal Lounge, and we are out of here.